Here's a question that makes a lot of believers uncomfortable. The Bible talks about the fallen angels far less than most people think. Most people assume the story is clear. It isn't. Be honest. When you hear the phrase, fallen angels, do you immediately picture Satan leading a rebellion in heaven? Or do you think of mysterious beings who appeared before the flood? Which explanation sounds more convincing to you so far? Think about that for a second. The surprising part is that many of the details people associate with fallen angels are not found together in one place in Scripture. Instead, they come from several biblical passages, later religious traditions, and ancient writings that have been debated for centuries. And this is where the story changes. One of the shortest passages in the entire Bible appears in Genesis chapter 6, just before the account of Noah's flood. It says that the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, took wives for themselves, and afterward there were mighty men of old, the Nephilim. That's almost the entire story. Only a few verses, no detailed explanation, no lengthy conversation, no clear definition of who these sons of God actually were. Yet those few verses have generated thousands of years of debate. That sounds straightforward, until you notice one detail. Genesis never actually uses the phrase fallen angels. It simply describes the sons of God. So, who were they? Most churches today present one interpretation that has become very familiar. According to this view, the sons of God were angels who left their proper place, came to earth, and entered relationships with human women. This interpretation is often connected with 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4 and Jude verse 6, where certain angels are described as having sinned and being kept in chains until judgment. At first glance, those passages seem to fit together. But that's where things get interesting. Neither Peter nor Jude specifically quotes Genesis 6 when describing those angels. Instead, they refer to angels who abandoned their proper position. Some readers naturally connect those verses to Genesis. Others argue that the connection is assumed rather than directly stated. Then another detail appears. The New Testament letter of Jude makes an unexpected reference to an ancient book that many people have never read. It is known as the Book of Enoch. Today, the Book of Enoch is not included in most Christian Bibles, although it remains part of the biblical canon of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. According to one Enoch, a group of heavenly beings called the Watchers descended to Mount Hermon. Their leader is often identified as Semjah, while another well-known figure is Azazel. According to that ancient text, these Watchers taught humanity forbidden knowledge, things like certain forms of warfare, metalworking, astrology, enchantments, and cosmetics. They also took human wives, and their offspring became giants, known as the Nephilim. The story is dramatic. It answers questions that Genesis leaves unanswered, and because of that, many ancient Jewish readers found it compelling. In fact, some scholars point out that during the centuries before the time of Jesus, the Book of Enoch was widely known among Jewish communities. Fragments of it were even discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, showing that it circulated long before the New Testament was written. But that's not the strange part. Even though Jude quotes from one Enoch, that doesn't necessarily mean every detail in the book was accepted as inspired by every Jewish or Christian community. Throughout history, different religious traditions reached different conclusions about its authority. Some valued it highly. Others treated it as useful history or religious literature without considering it scripture. Still others rejected it altogether. That single detail raises a bigger question. If an ancient book influenced early readers, should it also influence how we understand Genesis today? Or should Genesis be interpreted on its own? And this is where another interpretation enters the conversation. Not everyone believes the sons of God were angels. Some scholars, both ancient and modern, suggest that the phrase refers instead to the godly descendants of Seth, the son of Adam. According to this interpretation, the daughters of men were descendants of Cain.
The problem then was not angels marrying humans. The problem was faithful people abandoning their covenant identity by marrying into a corrupt culture. This explanation became especially influential through writers such as Augustine in the 4th and 5th centuries AD. Supporters argue that Jesus said in passages such as Matthew 22 verse 30 that angels in heaven do not marry. For them, that statement makes the angel interpretation difficult. But then something unexpected happens. Others respond that Jesus specifically spoke about angels in heaven. They argue that if certain angels had abandoned their proper position, they would no longer be acting according to heaven's design. Notice how both sides attempt to take Scripture seriously. Neither side simply ignores the biblical text. Instead, each emphasizes different passages. And that is why this question has remained open for centuries. Then another detail appears. Some ancient Jewish interpreters proposed a third possibility. Rather than referring to either angels or Seth's descendants, they suggested that the sons of God were powerful kings or rulers who claimed divine authority over ordinary people. In the ancient Near East, kings were sometimes described as sons of gods or chosen by the gods. According to this reading, Genesis criticizes human rulers who abused their power, took women by force, and filled the earth with violence. Suddenly, the story sounds less supernatural and more political. Could that be what Genesis intended? Some scholars think so. Others strongly disagree, and the debate continues.